Um, as of now, I know myself to be reason, which means a singular consciousness which knows that the whole of being is its own being. And I am not yet spirit, because in order for spirit to be brought to life, um, other consciousness must acknowledge that we share the same spiritual essence and that in spirit we are one. And spirit has not yet come to life, but um, a way of expressing this is that um, I have a light within me, but light needs to reveal itself to itself by enlightening the dark. And light can only be enlightening and illuminating by revealing the darkness and enlightening the dark. So it's a dialectical process. And in this video I will try to explain the broad outlines of what I call the phenomenology of the European spirit. But in truth, the whole world is the phenomenology of spirit. Not the book by Hegel, but the living, actual manifestation of spirit to itself. But Europeans are confronted with the negation of their being, and because they are confronted with negativity, they are forced to reflect upon their being and their essence and their concept, and to move and to search and to struggle and to thrive spiritually. So the phenomenology of the European spirit is a particular case of the phenomenology, and it is the first manifestation of spirit. And what I want to express to those watching these videos is that the whole movement of consciousness, which cannot be separated from the political, historical, demographic, cultural, sociological, biological, whatever movement of being, is determined by reciprocal logical interactions. In the most abstract view, it's the dialectical interaction between being and nothing, and in a more determinate fashion between determinate being or Dasein and Anderssein, or even more determined between identity and difference, positive and negative, opposites, the self and the other. These are the modes, the abstract logical categories or phenomenological categories that individual minds unconsciously use when they progress in their spiritual and intellectual development. And I will try to show the broad outline, the general plan that is unfolding in reality as we speak. So the average Westerner, white Westerner, begins his journey by being a cosmopolitan and a universalist leftist. He considers himself to be a citizen of the world. That's the zeitgeist of the elites. So the Westerner who has gone through the educational system and has been educated by the mainstream media thinks of himself, if he even thinks about his identity, as being a citizen of the world, praises brotherhood, equality, equal rights, stuff like that. And at some moment, for some people, there's a separation within consciousness which occurs, and this individual, it can be anyone, realizes that this abstract universality is contradictory because there are particular opposites within it, and in an American sense, the split of consciousness can occur because this abstract leftist will realize that the illegal immigrant is an other, or in Europe the radical Muslim is an other, and from the moment when you introduce separation or negativity within this abstract universal identity, you are already on a dialectical path and a Hegelian movement, even though you are not aware of it. And then all the opposition of consciousness will unfold. And I just take a few examples. The first broad opposition will be the mind of the individual and the media. It will oppose the media because the media lie, they deceive, they are corrupt, they are whatever. And from my perspective, the point where I'm at, I know that what appears in the media every day is spirit being made manifest. So you will go back to the starting point, and it's all part of the process. But at this moment in the process of consciousness, the other are the media or the illegal immigrants or the radical Muslim, because they are in team with one another. And you will, if you are logically consistent, you will study the media, how they deceive, how they use morality to manipulate, to shame, to bring guilt upon you, they reveal some informations and they hide other informations. So it's a deceiving trick, and you will notice that something like the liberal left, or the most in your mind will be the crazy leftists, who are crazy humanitarians, egalitarians, who bring about the downfall of your country. That's what the consciousness thinks. And you will, by opposing an other, by negating this abstract universality, you introduce two terms. And by defining the opposition as whether the illegal immigrants or the media or the leftist, you will unconsciously define yourself. You will notice that you are leaning towards conservatism, at least. You can still think of yourself as a leftist conservative, but you will understand that there are things worth preserving. So you are in a process of negation and preserving and defining the other and defining the self. It's not necessarily conscious, but you will lean towards the right. And from a Hegelian perspective, the left is abstract universality, which is good. The right is negative, which is evil. But the truth is beyond the two. It's a concrete universality where the movement of separation brings you back to unity, but the whole purpose is to realize knowing and understanding through a negative process and re-establishment of identity. So that's why the negative is a moment, a necessary moment in the development of consciousness. But yeah, and so you will start praising values like truth, order, family values, responsibility, and stuff like that. You will start to become aware of immigration as such, and start to think of yourself as native, or as being opposed to immigrants, not illegal immigrants, but immigrants in the broad sense. And you will force to be define your own identity. So we'll inquire about the history of your country, and you will gather knowledge and understanding. And here a contradiction occurs, because there are immigrants who are perfectly well integrated within society. They are assimilated, they have adopted the culture, they are hardworking, honest citizen, and you will have a conflict within your consciousness. You will say, it's not morally okay to reject those immigrants who have succeeded in becoming proper citizens of the country. So this is the conflict between the alt-light or the alt-right, and the alt-light has the moral up ground, but the alt-right, on the other hand, has also moral arguments. He says that if we do not draw a clear distinction, a limit between natives and non-natives, then the natives will disappear. So both have moral arguments, even though the alt-right looks like the bad guys. but they are driven by a form of love, because they want to protect what they think is the essential identity of the people. And when I'm talking about the alt-right, it's not necessarily the American phenomenon. It can be a European. You have right-wing leaning towards the far-right movement. Whether it's the alt-right or not, it's just an illustration of the opposition of consciousness. So yeah, there's a contradiction, and contradiction is the root of all movement and the cause of all change. And by discovering this, you will discover questions about IQ, that people are socially and economically determined to succeed or to fail, largely because of IQ, and that there's a correlation between the level of intelligence and the social status and the collective goods or ills that a society benefits from or suffers from depending on IQ. You will discover that women are biologically determined to act in a certain fashion, that they are hypergamous, they only favor the highest, strongest male, and you will discover evolutionary psychology. You will understand that social behavior are determined by Darwinian evolution, and that some people have tendencies depending on their background, their ethnic background. It's not strict determinism, but it's correlations. And you will discover sociobiology, and you will discover people like Stephen Molyneux, which is a figure of consciousness. You will identify with him because he speaks the truth, as people say, and you will radicalize yourself by discovering people like Jared Taylor, and you will become conscious of white identity, and you will think of yourself as white, as being opposed to non-whites. You will not necessarily hate non-whites, but a part of them, but you will love your own people and identify by differentiating yourself from the non-white. And here is another contradiction, is that because among the white people there are high IQ people, low IQ people, good people, bad people, stupid, intelligent, decent, evil people. So the white identity is self-contradictory, so you will be forced to move beyond, and you will also, before it depends on your spiritual path, but you will also meet the libertarian phase, because you will realize that the modern West is governed by the left, and they want to expand the welfare state, expand taxes, expand control and censorship. So a dialectical reaction against this will create a thirst for freedom, and you will be driven towards a libertarianism. So libertarian thinking is another form of consciousness. You will discover the Mises Institute, or like I said, Stephen Molyneux or Ron Paul, and this is a part of the movement of consciousness. And each time, unconsciously, you will not necessarily understand why, but there will be contradictions in your identity and your relation to self and to the other, which will force you, some of you, if you are logically consistent, to always overcome yourself and always move. And this is the movement of spirit. And I stop here for now, and I continue in a second part.